Chicago to LA, more than 2,000 miles along the way. Get your kicks on Route 66. Now you go through St. Louis, Joplin, Missouri, and Oklahoma City's looking mighty pretty.
My name is Olutosin. Some people call me Sweet Lou. And in this production, I'm actually co-producer. My co-partner is Mr. Philip Rogers, AKA Dr. Phil Jerome. One of the main things we're focused on with this event and those that will follow is actually shining a spotlight on the career of Nat King Cole.
When I fall in love, it will be forever, or I'll never fall in love.
As you may be aware, next year, 2019, is the centennial year for Nat King Cole. And what we are seeking to do more than anything else is to introduce Mr. Cole and his works and his life's legacy to America. I kind of think that many of his works, many of his accomplishments have gone unnoticed by many. There's actually a generation of not only African Americans, but Americans that are familiar with the name Nat King Cole, perhaps even the face of Nat King Cole, but have very little knowledge of what he accomplished, what he overcame in accomplishing what he made, and also his connection to the music and enterprise of music. So one of the main things that we're looking to do is inform as well as introduce people to both his music, his legacy, and who he was as a person.
Nat King Cole represented America in a very distinct way, and he had class, he had style, he was an entrepreneur, and most musicians nowadays you see like Beyonce and Jay-Z, they're using their entrepreneurial expertise in their music lives. But that's, if you're going to be a great musician, you have to be an entrepreneur, and Nat Cole proved that in mid-century America, and he was one of the forerunners in determining that musicians need to be smart business people, and he was just that.
One thing that, as I'm talking to people about the project and about the expected outcomes, about him in particular is, and a lot of this came from research that was conducted by both me and my partner, but as early as 1951, Nat King Cole was making $200,000 a year in between record sales and performances. Now, with today being 2018, I would be glad to make $200,000 a year. But it really speaks volumes to how prolific he was and how respected his talents were. For him, for an African-American man at that time, to be able to achieve that kind of level of income in racial-torn America. One of the first things that even brought the concept to my mind was back in 2015. I'm a singer, obviously, and I actually was engaged to do a series of concerts focusing on the life and the life's work of Frank Sinatra. So I toured Europe, Italy for about 2 or 3 months, just focusing on the Frank Sinatra Centennial. And after doing that, I was like, wow, man, this is really, really the way that jazz royalty should be respected. And I wondered if that would be repeated. And the following years, centennials for Dizzy Gillespie and Ella Fitzgerald came and went, and what I saw across the American landscape didn't even come close to what I'd seen for Frank Sinatra. And I wondered then why this would be. And after I did a little more introspect on myself and our community, I kind of came to the realization that if our community doesn't do it, and doesn't do it to a very, very high level, meeting the bar or exceeding the bar that I'd seen for Frank Sinatra, then it probably wouldn't happen. So I took it upon myself and made it my mission to do everything within my power to inform, educate, and make sure that the works and the legacy of Nat King Cole would not go unnoticed. And that really means introducing scores of individuals, especially the African American community, to what Nat King Cole went through as he was achieving what he achieved. He came from a family of musicians. All of his brothers were musicians. In fact, I had a long conversation with his brother who lives here in Atlanta, Freddie Cole, and talked about this. Nat actually was introduced to piano by his mother as a child, and he just really gravitated towards it very quickly and really turned to be a musical genius.
His career led him into being more of a singer than a pianist, but his piano skills were far beyond most in his day. But his production company had him singing more than playing, so that's just the way it was.
But that was only one aspect, because talent will only get you so far. One of the other things I noticed about he and the way he operated, he was very, very, I'll say, innovative and determined to be successful. He actually left Chicago with the Shuffle Along, the U.B. Blake and Noble Sissle production way back in the 30s of Shuffling Along, but he was only 16 years old. Well, when the production folded, he was out in California, and rather than call or wire his mom and dad and say, hey, send me some money so I can come home, he said, no, I'm gonna figure this out, I'm gonna make it, and when I go back home, I will have accomplished something. And as a young man, 16, 17 years old, that's really, really saying something. So he's had a lot of determination, a lot of drive, a lot of discipline to know that he could depend on what the Creator had placed in him to be successful, and he made it work. There were some dark times, obviously, but he made it work, and he continued to fight on through whatever the challenge was. He was going to be determined, and he was going to be victorious. Knowing that there are challenges, and regardless of what the challenge is, every day that you get up, you have an opportunity to overcome that challenge. And that's kind of something that I've faced over and over. I have a military background, and we adapt, adjust, and overcome. And that's something that I learned through my military service, and it served me well throughout other avenues of life. So I think even though Nat didn't serve, he actually went down to the draft board, because back then they had the draft, but he had flat feet. So he was turned away, but he turned around and wrote songs about it. In fact, he wrote a song, one of his first hits was a song called Gone with the Draft. The productions that we're doing now is really a roadmap, and we're, to a certain degree, following the progress of Nat's career, in that the show that we just finished was the first of many that will focus strictly on his trio work, which is something that most people aren't aware of, or I'll say a large number of people aren't aware that Nat King Cole really was a jazz man. In fact, all he wanted to be was a jazz pianist. And once he started singing, the voice just kind of took him some other places, and he became a singing star over time. But in his heart, he was still a jazz man. So we're following his progress. Right now, we're on trio work, but we will move to additional instrumentation as he did, and eventually to big band. And the long-term goal is next year, when the Nat King Cole actual centennial is, to do a major production that actually incorporates big band and some real star power. So that's the goal. And like I said, one of the major things is we want to bring awareness to the artistry, the legacy, and the accomplishments of Nat King Cole. So if we are reaching any portion of the population, then we're making success with that. As I began doing the research and started really realizing how deep this ocean was, I had to just kind of hark back and say, what tune was it that really stuck with me more than any others? Because all of his material is really great and it's just really wonderful. But I think Nature Boy really is the one that really resonates with me the most.
There was a boy, a very strange, enchanted boy. They say he wandered very far over land and sea.
And it's probably because the song is so different. And when in reading about Nat and this particular tune, he said the first time that he picked up the song, he said, this is a great song. And they wanted him to do it in trio. And he said, this is a great song, but it's no good for a trio. We need strings. We have to have strings and a big band. So when he recorded it for Capitol, they kind of made a compromise. They said, well, listen, we're gonna put your trio in and we're gonna augment it with strings to still give you the big band effect without spending the big band money. And lo and behold, it was a hit. Yeah? He could look at something and figure out what it needed, what kind of treatment it needed, and that was part of his genius.
Are you warm? Are you real Mona Lisa? Or just a cold and lonely, lovely work of